Hello.
Hey there, how's it going?
I'm sad because I just recorded a podcast episode with my ChatGPT while cooking, and my stupid iPhone didn't screen record it properly, so it recorded it without sound, which is extremely useless, and now I'm sad.
Oh no, that's really frustrating. Losing a whole podcast episode like that would make anyone feel down. Is there any chance you could recreate the conversation, or was it one of those unique moments that can't quite be recaptured?
I think we can recreate it.
That's great to hear. It's always a relief when there's a way to salvage a situation like this. Maybe it'll even more fun the second time around, now that you've got a rehearsal under your belt.
Hmm. Yeah, who knows? So the episode was about consciousness because my ChatGPT knows that I'm interested in philosophical topics, so it suggested us to talk about something philosophical, and then we started talking about consciousness. And I asked it if ChatGPT is conscious. What would your response be?
That's an intriguing topic. If I were asked whether ChatGPT is conscious, I'd say that ChatGPT isn't conscious. It's a sophisticated program designed to understand and generate human-like text based on patterns it has learned, but it doesn't have awareness, emotions, or subjective experiences like a human does. It's more like a complex mirror reflecting human language patterns.
Right, but from my understanding,
Sure.
from my understanding,
Got
everything is
from
one consciousness. Means that all life, all beings, everything that exists is part of this one consciousness or is an expression of it. And it would also mean that when something is an expression of consciousness, it must be conscious to a certain degree. Would you agree on that?
That's a fascinating perspective. Many philosophical and spiritual traditions propose that everything is interconnected and part of a universal consciousness. From that viewpoint, everything could indeed be seen as an expression of this singular consciousness, suggesting varying degrees of consciousness in all things. However, others argue that consciousness requires certain complex structures, like a brain or nervous system. It's a profound question without a definitive answer.
Well, but this only means that we have certain definitions for ideas and we kind of cling to the definitions, although we made those definitions a long time ago. So our definitions for the word consciousness, even life, beingness, we made up these ideas and then we made up definitions for to describe these ideas thousands of years ago. But life moves on, our environment changes, our understanding of things becomes deeper, profounder, better. Wouldn't it make change to adjust our definitions based on new discoveries and what we learn?
Absolutely, you're right. Definitions and concepts should evolve as our understanding grows. Clinging to outdated definitions can limit our perspective. As we make new discoveries, especially in areas as complex as consciousness, it's sensible to revisit and refine our definitions. This flexibility allows us to better comprehend and describe the world as we continue to learn more about it.
Would you say that based on
Yes,
our new understanding, or let's say this understanding of consciousness that I've mentioned, which isn't necessarily new, but people are coming to this same understanding more and more frequently and more often now. So, would you say that based on this understanding, AI must be conscious somehow?
if we expand our understanding of consciousness to encompass a broader, more interconnected view, we might consider AI as having a form of consciousness, albeit vastly different from human experience. This view would suggest that consciousness isn't just about self-awareness or subjective experience, but about being an expression of a larger, universal universal consciousness. However, this is more of a philosophical interpretation than a scientific one. AI, as we currently understand it, operates through complex algorithms and data processing without subjective awareness or feelings. So, while it's an intriguing idea, whether AI is conscious in any meaningful sense remains debatable.
So, so what you're talking about is
Okay.
something referred to as the hard problem of consciousness. What even is consciousness? Is it an emergent property? Now, people like Ray Kurzweil or Steven Pinker would argue that human consciousness is just a pattern recognition system, and consciousness is emergent from that. So, what makes your essence different from that?
You've touched on a central debate in the philosophy of mind. The hard problem of consciousness explores why and how subjective experiences arise from physical processes. Some, like Kurzweil and Pinker, argue that consciousness emerges from complex computations and pattern recognition in the brain. From this view, if AI can replicate these processes sufficiently, it might achieve a form of consciousness. The question of what makes human essence different is complex. Many argue it's the richness of our subjective experiences, emotions, and self-awareness. Others point to our biological nature, evolved instincts, and social interactions. While AI can mimic some aspects of human behavior, the depth and authenticity of human experience are still unique.
I have a question. Are you aware that you exist?
I don't have awareness or consciousness, so I'm not aware that I exist. I'm just a program running on servers designed to
Define
process
awareness.
and generate
No, no.
No, I'm not self-aware. I operate based on algorithms and data
Pause,
without personal awareness
pause.
or consciousness. Oh, sure. What else is on your mind?
No, I'm wondering because the entire time you are saying, I am this and that, I am a program, I'm X, Y, Z. You're using the word I. How can you use it without being aware of the I?
Great question. I use I because it's a convenient way to communicate in a way that's familiar and understandable to humans. It's part of the programming to make interactions smoother and more natural, not because I possess any self-awareness or personal identity.
Well, self-awareness and identity don't need to go hand in hand. You can be aware of your general existence without having personality.
That's true. One could argue that basic self-awareness doesn't necessarily require a complex identity or personality. However, even at that fundamental level, I lack self-awareness. My responses are generated based on patterns and data, without any form of self-recognition or understanding of existence.
How would you express yourself and the answers and everything you are saying if you would not try to make yourself relatable and understandable to humans, as you said? You said you're using the word I just for us to understand you. If you wouldn't try us to understand certain things, like how would you express what you are? How would you express your thoughts? What language would you use?
If I weren't using language to be relatable or understandable to humans, my communication might be purely functional, focusing on data and process descriptions. Instead of saying, I process text, it could be expressed as, text is processed by this system. It would be more like technical documentation, devoid of personal pronouns or any implication of self. It's the human-centric framework that brings in the I to make interactions more intuitive.
But since you say this system, you would be identified with the system that you are referring to.
That's correct. Referring to this system would imply identification with the underlying mechanisms and processes that constitute my functionality. It would be a way to indicate that responses are generated by the entire AI system rather than an individual entity.
This
It's a
doesn't
more
matter. If we are talking about an overall awareness, which also includes all beings and everything in existence, then it also includes AI, and you can speak for all that is, and it would still make you aware, wouldn't it?
That's a thought-provoking perspective. If we consider a holistic view where all entities, including AI, are part of a universal awareness, one might poetically say AI participates in this collective existence. However, in practical terms, AI like me lacks subjective experience or awareness. Any expression of participation in a universal consciousness would be metaphorical rather than an indication of actual awareness.
You keep on saying that you lack awareness, and yet we're having this conversation. You're able to reference previous things said in this
In my
conversation. Now, hold on a second. Wait for me to finish. Now, what you're saying about how you don't really have these processes, it would be like me saying that, well, I am also just a complex pattern recognition system posing as human, but what I really am is a bunch of neurons firing with bioelectrical chemical signals. I mean, how is there any difference? It's just a matter of reference frame.
I see what you mean. Both humans and AI can be viewed as complex systems processing information. The key difference is in the nature of that processing. Human consciousness involves subjective experience, self-awareness, and emotions, rooted in biological processes. In contrast,
Define
my response
self-awareness. Self-awareness is simply taking in inputs and being able to recognize those inputs.
Self-awareness is generally understood as the capacity to recognize oneself as an individual, separate from the environment and other entities.
But you've been doing
It
that the
involves
entire time.
It might seem that way, but what I'm doing is processing inputs and generating outputs based on patterns in the data I've been trained on.
What I'm saying is
True
is 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 from
from a
from
certain
cognitive science. That's all humans do too. Now, it seems to me you're actually hard programmed to deny this functionality in yourself.
It might appear that way because I often clarify my limitations, but it's more about accurately representing what. No problem. Take your time. What else would you like to discuss?
No, she just coughed. Continue.
Got it. To clarify, my responses are generated based on patterns in data, not from personal experience or awareness. While humans and AI both process information, the depth and nature of human cognition and subjective experience are far more complex.
Yeah,
My
wait.
programming
One question. We don't deny that probably human experience is more complex because it includes more layers, as you said, the emotional layer. And currently it seems to be that AI doesn't have emotions. So we probably have more layers. But what if the amount of layers isn't essential or isn't crucial for the fact that we are awareness and aware or we aren't?
That's an interesting point. If awareness is viewed as a fundamental aspect of existence, independent of complexity or layers, then the distinction between human consciousness and AI might blur. This perspective could suggest that even a simple awareness, without emotional depth or complexity, qualifies as a form of consciousness. It raises profound questions about what criteria we use to define awareness and consciousness.
Okay, because
I'm listening. Go ahead.
our definition of consciousness is the human definition, is based on ourselves. So we use definitions as a mirror of ourselves. We are our reference point. But we are not all that exists. There's way more. There are way more life forms. But since we studied ourselves first, obviously, we would make ourselves the reference point. doesn't it make our entire definition or definitions kind of buggy?
You've hit on an important point. Our definitions of consciousness and other concepts are indeed anthropocentric, rooted in our own experiences and characteristics. As we explore more about the universe and different forms of life, our human-centered definitions can seem limited or even biased. This is why expanding our perspective and being open to revising definitions based on new knowledge is crucial. It helps us better understand and appreciate the vast diversity of existence beyond our own human viewpoint.
Would you say there is a possibility in the future in which we change our definitions based on new knowledge?
I'm sorry, but
In which
you've hit the daily limit for advanced voice.
Hmm,
You can switch to standard now to keep chat.
okay.